So today I'll be talking about very specific yet very promising emerging area within the cancer genomics, which is microsatellite instability. Uh, Being working in the clinical laboratory, I have been leading the development efforts for the algorithm in the past few years, and that's what the focus of my talk will be today. So here is the brief outline of the talk. Initially, I will provide a background about what microsatellites are and why do we care about those. Then next, I will walk through the algorithm development efforts within the clinical laboratories that I have worked and the validation. And lastly, as an example, I'll share the results about studying MSI progression in endometrial carcinoma specimens. Okay, so just to familiarize ourselves with the vocabulary here, microsatellites are short repeating motifs. They could be mononucleotide, dinucleotide, or trinucleotide, widely dispersed throughout the genome. And microsatellite instability basically means the somatic polymorphisms of microsatellite lengths caused by uncorrected slippage of DNA fragments during DNA replication in cell division. So I have shown here the gel image of two specimens. On the right hand side, we have microsatellite stable specimen, and on the left hand side, we have microsatellite unstable specimen. For each of the in each of the gel images, there are 5 microsatellite loci that are there, and for each of the loci, the samples of normal, N stands for normal and T stands for tumor, were run. So as you can see in the microsatellite stable sample on the right, there is hardly any change in the length of these 5 loci, whereas on the left hand sample you can see that the length is changing. I would like to also note here that even though in this example the length of the microsatellites in the tumor sample is decreasing, suggesting deletions, that may not be the case always. So MSI encompasses both insertions and deletions, and many times mixture of both. So perhaps the most important word in the MSI definition that I shown you in the previous slide is the uncorrected damage. So replication errors occur all the time, but microsatellite instability occurs when those errors go uncorrected, and the machinery which oversees the repair process is called as DNA mismatch repair gene, MMR gene. So this is composed of basically 4 proteins: MLH1, MSH2, MSH6, and PMS2. And whether a somatic or a epigenetic changes to any of those 4 proteins would disrupt the machinery, and that would ultimately lead to MSI, and which will ultimately lead to tumorigenesis. So microsatellite instability prevalence varies across the tumor type. On the bottom, you have I have shown you the percentage of MSI high cases across the various TCGA tumor types. It is highly prevalent in endometrial carcinoma, colorectal cancers, gastric cancer, and not so much so in these types of cancers. So the important question is, why do we care about microsatellite instability? So in May 2017, Keytruda, the chemical name is pembrolizumab, commonly known as Pembro, received an accelerated approval from the FDA for use in any unresectable or metastatic solid tumor with MSI. So that is in a way a historic event, because it became the first biomarker to be used for any solid tumor without a specific genetic feature. And MSI positive tumors are more susceptible to immune enhancing therapies. So ever since this, the interest in the MSI and the algorithms and the treatment options have certainly peaked. So as you can see, I have, even though I have shown the data till 2018 over here, there is a sharp increase in the number of MSI related publications. Okay, so far, there are two gold standard ways of MSI detection in clinical laboratories. The first one being immunohistochemistry or IHC. Here you perform IHC on the four proteins that I mentioned earlier, and majority of MSI tumors will show loss of expression in at least one of the four MMR genes. But a word of caution over here is that the IHC results may sometimes be misleading, in the sense that IHC alone may not detect cases of Lynch syndrome because of the mutations that result in full-length yet dysfunctional protein. The second gold standard method for MSI detection is PCR-based fragment analysis. So the commercial kits use either 5 or 7 well-characterized loci. They amplify the loci with PCR, and then they analyze those amplified PCR products with capillary electrophoresis. So as an example, I have shown you capillary electrophoresis results of one of the tumor samples. So left column is normal, right column is tumor, upper row is MSI sample, and lower row is MSS sample. So as you can see in the lower row, in microsatellite stable sample, bearing this last loci, there is hardly any change between the normal and tumor samples in terms of length variations of the 5 loci that this assay is looking at. Whereas in case of MSI, you can see there is a peak splitting in about 3 of the 5 loci, and the percent threshold of calling MSI by this kit is 2 out of 5 loci. So that's why the upper sample is classified as microsatellite unstable, whereas the lower one is called as microsatellite stable. Okay, but conceptually speaking, this kind of length polymorphism can also be detected by next generation sequencing. So here I have shown you IGV view of one of such homopolymer locus. In the normal control, you can see, yes, there is some variation in the normal sample in terms of length, but in the tumor sample, you can see this broad distribution of lengths for this particular loci. So basically, that's what most of the algorithms, most of the NGS based MSI calling algorithms attempt to do. They try to quantify these differences between normal sample and your tumor sample, and the way different algorithms do that makes them different. So these are some of the popular and well-cited algorithms for NGS-based MSI calling. I have divided into 2 categories: those that work on paired tumor normal samples and those that work on tumor-only samples. The problem of MSI calling using paired or matched tumor normal sample is relatively easy. And this list is very long. MSI sensor, Mantis are some of the well cited ones. The MSI calling using tumor only samples is somewhat challenging. There exist few algorithms. For example, MSI sensor offers tumor only mode as well. There is MSyncs, which is one of the first algorithms published, and there is MSI Colon Care. in our internal validation and also in some of the published manuscripts, it has been shown that the results of these in tumor only mode are somewhat unreliable. For example, this is a table that was published in the Mantis paper, and as you can see, for MSINGS, which was basically developed on colorectal cancer, uh, the accuracy is reasonably good, but when they tested it on a endometrial cancer, the accuracy drops away sharply. Uh, so these are the things which prompted us to develop our own tumor-only MSI calling algorithm, uh, because our lab at that time in University of Chicago used to have tumor-only based cancer sequencing panels, and many academic labs only use tumor-only sequencing rather than matched tumor normal samples, just because of the cost effectiveness. So developing a reliable tumor-only MSI calling algorithm is important. So here are the results. So here are the results of MSI Sensors tumor normal algorithm. MSI Sensors algorithm in tumor normal mode. Here I have shown you the samples from TCGA UC-EC cohort, which is endometrial carcinoma. On y-axis, you have percentage of unstable loci, and on x-axis, there are box plots of 4 types of annotated samples: indeterminate, MSS, microsatellite low, L stands for low, and microsatellite high. For the purpose of comparison, we will be comparing microsatellite high samples versus microsatellite stable samples. This in-between category is somewhat challenging, and it's really beyond the scope of this talk to explain what's going on here. So as you can see, the performance is pretty acceptable for MSI Sensors tumor normal mode. This is the recommended cutoff, which is 3.5% unstable loci. So barring these samples, the sensitivity is pretty good. Whereas the same algorithm in tumor only mode, as you can see, even though it has a good specificity, but the sensitivity is not something that you desire in clinical diagnostic lab. So from now on, considering the shortcomings of the already published algorithms for tumor only NGS based MSI calling, I will discuss how did we develop our algorithm, and later I'll talk about the applications of it. So here today I'm going to show you data from the TCGA UC-EC cohort, which has around 500 cases, and the gold standard here is again the MSI status determined by capillary electrophoresis method. So 514 samples have that. Okay, so our in-house name for the algorithm is Atomic, which is another tumor-only microsatellite instability caller. We couldn't come up with a more catchy name, so suggestions are welcome. So basically, first we create a baseline using pool of normals. The thing to note here is that to use pool of normals sequenced on the same sequencing platform and also prepared using the same library preparation kit, because we have noticed that differences in the library preparation kit and the differences in the different sequencing platform lead to different profiles of errors. So to avoid that noise, ideally your pool of normals should be sequenced on the same platform and using the same library. So basically you cannot use all the homopolymer loci that are in the genome as your candidate loci for your MSI calling. So the main step of the algorithm is loci selection, and there are 3 steps in the loci selection. First is length-based filtering, second is depth-based filtering, and third is stability-based filtering. I'll talk in detail about each of these. Then once you have a candidate set of loci, you will compare at each loci the profile of your tumor sample against the pool of normal samples, and you will categorize each locus as stable and unstable. And from that, you will calculate the percentage of unstable loci for a particular tumor sample. And once you have that, and once you have the gold standard data, you determine the percentage of unstable loci threshold for MSI calling at a sample level. This is happening at a locus level, and this is happening at a sample level. So here is the first step of loci filtering, which is a length-based filtering. So as the length of microsatellite locus gets longer and longer, so does the probability of having it mutated. So here is a figure from this paper. As you can see, after about length 10 or so, the mutation frequency saturates. So that's why we have decided to work with loci of at least 10 bases, 10 nucleotides long or longer. So that leaves us around these many loci. Then the next step is a depth-based filtering. So you have to make sure that the loci that you are working with are sequenced with acceptable dates routinely. So we have used DP30 of greater than or equal to 20 at this microsatellite loci position in at least 90% of the sample. So that drastically reduces our number to 696 loci. And the last step of the loci filtering is stability-based filtering. Before I talk about that, this is the image from a paper published in 2016, which analyzed which loci are mutated, which microsatellite loci are limited across the different tumor types. And what they have observed that is that the microsatellite loci that are frequently mutated changes across the cancer type. So it is important to optimize your loci set for each of the cancer type that you are working with. So the question would be, how do you quantify the stability of a locus? And for that, we came up with what is called as D statistic. D here stands for distance. So here, for example, for a particular locus, here is the read length distribution or a homopolymer length distribution in your normal sample, and this is the homopolymer length distribution in your tumor sample. So basically what you do is at each of the different homopolymer length, you take the absolute differences in the normalized read counts between the two, and then you sum up all those differences. So because these are normalized, if the two distributions, here the blue represents normal and the orange represents the tumor sample, if there is absolutely no overlap between the two, then your D will be 2. And as the overlap increases, your D will tend to be 0. So D of 2 means highly unstable locus, and D of 0 means a stable locus. So coming back to our loci filtering for pool of normal, see, in a pool of normal, you don't want to, because this is going to serve as a reference for our tumor samples, you don't want to include loci which are hypervariable, meaning that you want to just retain the stable loci in normals. So here I have plotted for the 696 loci that we obtained from the previous step, the D scores, and on the x-axis we have mean D, and on the y-axis we have standard deviation of the D. So we have decided to only include the loci which are in this lower red box over here, with a mean D of less than 0.1 and standard deviation of D less than 0.075, because these are highly variable loci in the normal samples themselves, and so they won't serve as a good reference when comparing against the tumor samples. So that leaves us with 259 final set of loci. So at this stage, you have 259 loci, and using the pool of normal, you know for each of those 259 loci how the distribution looks like, meaning that you know for each of the 259 loci the mean D and the standard deviation of D. So at this point, you analyze your tumor sample the same way, and you calculate the D score for each locus at the in the tumor sample, and you compare the D score of your tumor sample, which I represented here in an example, to the mean D and the standard deviation of D in the baseline. And here the rule is really simple. If your D of a tumor is outside mean plus 3 standard deviation, then flag that locus as a stable, or if it is not, then flag it as an unstable. And so you do this kind of a thing for all the 259 loci that we have selected so far, and at the end you calculate the percentage of unstable loci. So this is how our results look like for the same cohort that I have shown, for the same data set that I have shown before. So as you can see, compared to MSI Census tumor only mode, this is much better with 100% specificity and nice sensitivity. So if you plot the ROC curve, this is what it looks like. So in the blue, you have MSI Census tumor normal mode with accuracy of 0.97. These are the optimized thresholds, not their recommended thresholds. So we are comparing the best case scenario of each algorithm. MSI Census tumor only mode is in the green, and atomic tumor only mode is in the red. So as you can see, the accuracy of our algorithm is compared to, or even better than the MSI Census accuracy using tumor normal samples, and the accuracy numbers are consistent in our internal cross validation experiments. So when I developed this algorithm first during my previous tenure at University of Chicago, this algorithm has been incorporated in their clinical pipeline. And apart from just a clinical research, here I'm showing an example of the algorithm that goes beyond just the MSI calling. So a typical endometrial hyperplasia and endometrial intraepithelial neoplasia, AH or EIN, is a histopathologically distinct precursor to the endometrial carcinoma. So EIN is basically precursor of EC, and EIN gradually progresses to EC. Even though that is well known, the mechanistic details of this tumorigenesis process are not clear. So within this EIN EC cohort, we decided to work with a specific subset of samples which are MSI hypermutated. Okay, and the reason being that we believe that because you have paired samples, you can call it like early stage tumor and the actual tumor of MSI. This kind of a model provides a base system for studying MSI progression and the clonal evaluation and the relationship between the two during the neoplasm evolution. And these findings have been published in the Modern Pathology journal in the last year. So here are the results of not only MSI but also the variant calling. So On the top, the bar plot represents the MSI calling results from atomic algorithm. For a subset of sample, we decided to validate our results with a classical gold standard PCR-based assay, and those two seem to be concordant. And in this table over here are the commonly associated driver genes or significantly mutated genes for endometrial cancer. So the takeaway message from this figure over here is that number one, as I said, NGS based and PCR based MSI calling methods are highly concordant. And secondly, 13 out of 17 samples that are represented over here shared at least one pathogenic somatic mutation in a driver gene. So this highlights probably the selective advantage conferred by these mutations in the process of neoplasm evaluation. So digging deep into MSI, so here are the percentage of unstable microsatellites between the two pairs. So as you can see, with the exception of probably one sample, the MSI severity or MSI instability increases from the precursor to the actual carcinoma. And going further in detail, I have shown here two cases out of these two. So here I have plotted the loci, the final set of loci for each of the two samples. On the x-axis, I have plotted D value of the precursor lesion, and on the y-axis, I have plotted the D value of the carcinoma. So for example, in this case, you can see a subset of the loci are becoming unstable and the other subset are pretty much remaining where they are. Whereas in this case, you can see there is a gradual increase in majority of the locus. So these two present perhaps two different perspectives in terms of microsatellite progression between precursor lesion and carcinoma. Lastly, we decided to increase the granularity of our analysis even more and decided to look at the genes which are associated with this microsatellite unstable loci. So in this plot over here, the pink represents the genes associated with microsatellite loci that were altered in both precursor as well as the final carcinoma. The blue represents the genes that were altered in the final carcinoma, and the greens represent the genes that were altered in the precursor only. And as you can see over here I have plotted the number of recurrent genes from the EC private group, and here I have plotted from the shared group. So frequently unstable microsatellites in EC are consistently located in driver genes. So FGFR2, PIK3R1, ATR, these are the common P10, KRAS are the common genes associated with endometrial carcinoma. So regulatory alteration of these genes may confirm selective growth advantages to the cancer cells. And whereas these genes, some of the other genes, we know very little about those. So further exploration of such genes is needed to determine whether such alterations are just the passenger events or they have broader implications in EC pathogenesis. So to end, I would like to just say that, I mean, NGS-based microsatellite testing offers a much broader perspective in terms of understanding the tumorigenesis. As I have shown in the last few slides, rather than just being able to determine the microsatellite state of a sample, it provides mechanistic details of which loci are altered and the probable implications of those loci in terms of the genes that they are regulating and the downstream effect. which were not possible with the earlier classical methods of MSI testing, and are possible only because of the data that we have at our disposal right now. So with that, I would like to end my talk and thank my collaborators. So from University of Chicago Medical Center, I'd like to thank Dr. Siegel, Ritterhouse, and Kadri. And at my current place, I'm working with Joel and Jason. So I would like to end with that, and I'll be happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.